storm cloud, turn a frown into a smile for free. Who's the kid with a heart full of magic? Everyone knows
Brick!
That's me!
Welcome back to the Nostalgia Network. My name is Brick Johnson, and today we're going to be going over the U.S. Constitution. Now, this is where my channel is going to start going over history. And if you're an American, you should know a lot about the U.S. Constitution. But if you're new to the Constitution, or don't know anything about U.S. Constitution, then this video should give you a good deal on what the U.S. Constitution is and all the amendments that are part of it. The United States Constitution is the oldest written national constitution still in use. It is a living document, which is capable of meeting the changing needs of Americans. This is also used by putting amendments to the Constitution in order to change the Constitution and make it more adapting to the laws and the people and the government. The Constitution was written into the law because of the failures of the Articles of Confederation. One of the first issues the Confederation faced had to do with the Northwest Territory, lands west of the Appalachian Mountains, where many people settled after the Revolutionary War. To help govern these lands, Congress passed the Land Ordinance of 1785, which established a plan for surveying the land. In the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, Congress provided a procedure for dividing the land into no fewer than 3 and no more than 5 states. The ordinance also set requirements for the admission of new states, which, however, overlooked Native American claims. The Land Ordinance of 1785 and the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 began the Confederation's most significant achievements. Overshadowing such successes, however, were the Confederation's many problems. The most serious problem was that each state functioned independently, having to pursue its own interests rather than considering those of the nation as a whole. The government had no means of raising money or enforcing its laws. Moreover, there was no national court system to settle legal disputes. The Articles of Confederation created a weak central government and very little unity among all the states. This would lead up to Shays' Rebellion, which was the need for a stronger central government that became obvious in 1786, when many farmers rose up in protest in western Massachusetts over increased state taxes. The farmers' discontent boiled over into mob action in January of 1787 when Daniel Shays, a fellow farmer, led an army of 1,200 farmers toward the arsenal at Springfield, Massachusetts. State officials hurriedly called out the militia to head off the army of farmers, killing 4 of the rebels and scattering the rest. Shays' Rebellion, as the farmers' protest came to be called, caused panic and dismay throughout the nation. It was clearly time to talk about a stronger national government. Because the states had placed such severe limits on the government to prevent abuse of power, the government was unable to solve many of the nation's problems. News of the rebellion spread throughout the states. The revolt persuaded 12 states to send delegates to a convention called by Congress in Philadelphia in May of 1787. Most of the delegates at the Constitutional Convention recognized the need to strengthen the central government. Within the first 5 days of the meeting, they gave up the idea of fixing the Articles of Confederation and decided to form an entirely new government that would replace the one created by the Articles. One major issue that the delegates faced was giving fair representation to both large and small states. James Madison had proposed the Virginia Plan, which called for a bicameral or 2-house legislature with membership based on each state's population. Delegates from the small states vigorously objected to the Virginia Plan because it gave more power to states with large populations. Small states supported William Paterson's New Jersey Plan, which proposed a single-house Congress in which each state had an equal vote. The debate became deadlocked and dragged on throughout the hot and humid summer days. Eventually, Roger Sherman suggested the Great Compromise, which offered a 2-house Congress to satisfy both small and big states. Each state would have equal representation in the Senate, or upper house, such as the Virginia Plan being based on population, and the New Jersey Plan would have equal representation. Delegates had provided a means of changing the Constitution through the amendment process. After 4 months of debate and compromise, the delegates succeeded in creating a Constitution that was an enduring document. In other words, by making the Constitution flexible, the delegates enabled it to pass the test of time. George Washington adjourned the Constitutional Convention on September 17, 1787. The convention's work was over, but the new government could not become a reality until at least 9 states ratified or approved the Constitution. Thus, the battle over ratification began. After the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists waged a war of words in the public debate over ratification, it would come to an adoption of a Bill of Rights. By December of 1971, the states had ratified 10 amendments to the Constitution, which became known as the Bill of Rights. The first 8 amendments spelled out the personal liberties the states had requested. The First Amendment guarantees citizens to the rights of freedom of religion, speech, the press, and political activity. This means we can have newspapers, television networks about news, and I could say whatever I want, and we could have any political activity. According to the Second and Third Amendments, the government cannot deny citizens the right to bear arms as members of a militia of citizen soldiers, which means they cannot deny regular citizens the right to have guns, or as a militia in an army, which means that anybody can have guns as it's their right to have it. And nor can the government house troops in private homes in peacetime. So this will prevent some like the British did, which was the Quartering Act, which had soldiers crash and stay in someone's house. The Fourth Amendment prevents the search of citizens' homes without proper warrants, which means the police can't search the home unless they have a warrant. The Fifth through Eighth Amendments guarantee fair treatment for individuals accused of crimes, like I plead the Fifth. The Ninth and Tenth Amendments impose general limits on the powers of the federal government. The protection of rights and freedoms did not apply to all Americans at the time the Bill of Rights was adopted. This would be the same for several years. Native Americans and slaves, which included African Americans, were of course excluded. Women were not mentioned in the Constitution. The growing number of free blacks did not receive adequate protection from the Constitution. Although many states permitted free blacks to vote by the time the end of the Civil War happened, the Bill of Rights offered them no protection against white discrimination and hostility, which of course led up to the Civil Rights Movement and everything. The Constitution can also be formally changed when necessary through amendments. The Constitution also provides ways for amendments to be proposed and to be ratified. However, the writers made the amendment process difficult in order to avoid arbitrary changes. Through the ratification process, the writers of the Constitution have also ensured that any amendment has the overwhelming support of the people. In more than 200 years, only 27 amendments have been added to the Constitution. These amendments have helped the government meet the challenges of a changing world while still preserving the rights of the American people, except for other amendments like Prohibition, which prevented the sales of alcohol and caused organized crime to happen related to alcohol and such in the 1920s. James Madison, besides providing brilliant political leadership, he was known for keeping a record of the debates that took place at the convention. Because of his plan and his leadership, James Madison is known as the father of the Constitution, as he was one of the writers behind the Constitution. He would later become known as the 4th President of the United States. James Madison was President of the United States from 1809 to 1817. That was all for my video. I hope you enjoyed this video about the U.S. Constitution, as this is my first history video on this channel. There will be more videos like this coming soon. And if you're wondering why I filmed the beginning part in a new room and not the outro, is because that room is being painted. My room had to have a paint overhaul. That's why I was filming here for this outro. That was all. This has been Brick Johnson from the Nostalgia Network, and I'm out.